Hi, I'm Brock.
I'm Brenna and our dad is Bruce.
We just wanted to take a moment to share with St. Philip's how much our dad means to us, how much we love him.
He's the most kind-hearted and loving person you'll ever meet.
Whether it's a decision from as big as choosing a college or learning how to pump gas, he's going to provide us with a 15-page PowerPoint and handouts on how to help us. He's just the most caring person I've ever met in my entire life.
We love it anyways, and we love you, Dad.
We love you, Dad. Love you, Moose.
Hi, I'm Casey Osmond and my dad is TJ, also known to a lot of people as probably the guy with the dog. And one thing I have to say about my dad is how supportive he is. I could probably count on my 5 fingers in the 19 years of my life how many sporting events or events of mine that he has missed. If he could bring the dog was there with him. If he couldn't, he was still there. Even like night games, summer league, scrimmages, anything, my dad was always there. Big or small, bocce games, always there. So I can count on him for the rest of my life to be in every event, big or small. And yeah, super supportive guy. Love you, Dad.
Hi, my name is Logan and I'm the son of John D'Angelo. I've been a competitive tennis player for the majority of my life, and my dad has never missed a single tournament. Of course, I always wanted to win, but my dad made sure to make the trip memorable, regardless of my results on court. The trips where we had to travel were especially memorable. Looking back, I don't necessarily remember every match I played and whether I won or lost them, but I do remember the endless hours in the car singing classic rock, along with the laughs and bonding that we shared. I remember the countless nights in a number of hotels and the various restaurants that we ate at. I remember spending hours at the tennis facility, just watching tennis and anxiously getting ready to hear my name called on court. Most of all, I remember looking up at the stands when I was playing and seeing my dad look right back. In those moments, I knew that it wasn't just about tennis anymore. I knew that no matter what, my dad would be there for me and support me for the rest of my life. I'm so unbelievably blessed to have a dad as great as mine also be my best friend. Dad, happy Father's Day. I love you.
So, to tell a good story about my dad would be impossible, not because there aren't any good ones, but because there are so many, and so many that I feel like I would be leaving out such hilarious details that you would just lose the story. So I decided that maybe more a general experience around my father would be better, to kind of share a little bit about him. He is the best person to talk to ever about anything. This is a fact, and I will stand by that. There's no one I would rather talk to about really anything that's going on in my life or in my head than my dad. He's always super open. It doesn't matter where we are, whether we were in the car on the way to travel soccer games when I was a kid, or now sitting out on the front porch on a summer night. It really doesn't matter. I can talk to him about anything, anywhere, and that's really the best part. We really approach the world in kind of the same way, lovingly, guidingly, trying to help as many people as we can. And I've never really appreciated anyone quite as much as I appreciate my dad and the guidance he's given me throughout life. It's really just the most important thing to me, and I think it's the reason I'm the person I am today, and I can't thank him enough. So while I don't have a specific story, I just felt it was right to share my experience with him, which is just the best a son can ask for from his dad, which is love, respect, kindness, and not just for me, for everybody that he knows, for everyone that he cares about. It's everyone before himself, and there is no more selfless person than my dad. So thank you, Dad.
So what I appreciate about my dad the most is his overall supportiveness and his leadership. So supportiveness just being that growing up he was always at my sporting events, he always made sure he was home for dinner on time, and just if I had a bad day I knew I could always come home and my dad would listen and give me some sound advice, and I think that's just really important to give a child that sense of security and confidence at their house. And secondly, I would say his leadership, and that's just overall, he's always been the godly leader of our household, and God calls men to do that, and I think it's a very important role that should be taken seriously. So my dad's worked in the ministry his whole life. He's always encouraged us to go to church, always made sure we went to youth group, always was trying to make sure we were volunteering with something that was purposeful in our life and that we were passionate about, and I think that's just very important. And also, he just always made sure our house was a place people could come and have fellowship, and that's what I hope to take mostly into my adult life, is that I have a home that people can come to and feel comfortable in and find that sense of community and fellowship that's really hard to find.
What I appreciate most about my dad is that he is a hustler and a risk taker, and that he doesn't really care about what other people think about him in terms of what he's doing with his life, which encouraged me to follow my dreams and do stuff that wasn't necessarily a conventional career, but he always gave me the drive and encouraged me to really follow my heart and live out my purpose, which I really appreciated. The other thing I really appreciate about my dad is that he's unashamedly himself, and that he is always willing to be a participant in God's plan. He's always chasing after a random nurse at the hospital, or some guy sitting by himself at Bruegger's, or just honestly like a police officer that pulls him over, which happens a lot. But he always talks about, why we are on earth and what our purpose is, and he never jams it down anyone's throat, but he meets people where they're at and delivers the gospel a crazy amount of times. And once again, he doesn't care if he gets rejected. He just cares about expanding the kingdom. So I really appreciate that about him.
Hi, my name is Jessica, and this is my daughter, Pepper Jane. My father is Denny Patton, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina now, so I'm watching St. Philip's from afar. I just wanted to share something I appreciate about my dad, and that is that he has always lived his life by faith. There wasn't a single day I can remember from growing up, and even now, where I didn't see my dad reading his Bible, praying, or giving me advice on how to trust God. I think he is really an example of what it is to fully dedicate your life to Christ and to trust him in every decision you make, and in all your hard times and your good times. It's a lesson that I keep with me every day, and I think maybe the most valuable lesson I ever learned. And it's something I hope to instill in my own daughter and be a similar example, that she can trust God to take care of her life the way my dad taught me to trust God to take care of mine. Love you, Dad.
Well, I guess the question is, what advice do I have to give to other fathers? First of all, I think it's important that you keep your childlike personality into adulthood. I see a lot of fathers who try to become, super adults, but they lose that little child inside of them. I think what young people really appreciate in children is when you can really relate to them, kind of like a child, enter into their world, be a part of their world. And then when you meet their friends, be the most childlike father of any of their friends have met, because their friends will all of a sudden want to adopt you as their dad, and your house becomes a place where everybody wants to gather. So I think that's really important. Another piece is the word forgiveness. Most families, when they get into a fight, they solve the fight simply by using time. So you get in a fight, you don't talk to one another for a period of time, and then maybe a week goes by and somebody has to say, "Can I borrow your knife?" or something crazy like that. And then all of a sudden, the no talking stage is over, but the problem hasn't been solved. Forgiveness is absolutely essential. It starts with your forgiveness from Christ. He forgave you while you were yet a sinner, and he expects the same from you. For instance, when you say the Lord's Prayer, you say, "And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." But the prayer continues, "And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." Could it be that Jesus was saying that when you can't forgive somebody and he can't forgive you, you will be led into temptation and you will have to be, relieved of evil that, Satan wants to bring into your life, your family's life? The greatest evil is unforgiveness, because if you're not forgiven, you can't have Jesus Christ as your Savior, you can't go to heaven. So forgiveness starts with making up a plan before you have children with your wife. And that plan is that we will forgive one another when we fight, or we won't stop our meeting. We will meet together until we can forgive one another, simply saying, will you find it in your heart to forgive me right now? And she says the same thing to you. You hug one another, and that's the end of the fight. You don't take it to the next day, it's over. And then you pass it on to your children. When I make a mistake in front of my child, I have to be able to ask, "Could you forgive me?" to my child. I never heard that in my family. I never can remember my mother or father saying, "Would you forgive me?" That's learned through the faith in Jesus Christ. That's where you learn about forgiveness. And so those two things I think are really important. And I think that the one thing I find fathers doing is working really hard often and trying to catch up with their children on the weekends. That doesn't work. You can't catch up. You either do it now or it's gone. So you got to get to that practice. You've got to get to that choral recital. You've got to get to that piano recital. And you've got to do it in the time it's happening. Otherwise, you'll see your child going off to college and realize you missed their entire life. So I always volunteered, for instance, to drive to practices, because I know how to drive, so I can do that. My wife was good with academics, so she did all the tutoring. But I drove to every practice, and I never wanted to miss, and I took other children and volunteered to take the other children. So I think it's important to not miss your children as they're growing up and thinking you can catch up later. So those would just be 3 pieces of advice I would have for fathers.